Hello, madam. Good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me, ma'am? Hello, madam. Good morning.
Hello, Dr. Kumari, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Can we start the meeting, ma'am? Registrar, madam?
Yes. Good morning. We can start.
Yeah. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants, because we are having also the international participants, all dignitaries. We welcome all of you. The moderators welcome the dignitaries, the participants, the speakers, and all the others who have joined for this international webinar on COVID-19 and food security and nutrition security, a scenario in South and Southeast Asia. On behalf of the Department of Food Science and Nutrition Association, Avinash Lingam Institute for Home Science and Higher Education for Women, and the Nutrition Society of India, Coimbatore chapter, I cordially welcome all of you to this webinar. We are doing this webinar as part of our MOU with the University of Reading, as a part of a collaborative activity with University of Reading, United Kingdom. And I am very happy to welcome our Registrar Madam, Dr. S. Kausalya, to this international webinar. And ma'am will be inaugurating this webinar. I'm happy to welcome our Professor and Head of the Department, Dr. Tirumani Devi. And if any other dignitaries and authorities are there, I'm happy to welcome our Chancellor, our Vice Chancellor Madam, and all our Deans and HODs of various departments to this international webinar. And I also, a special word of welcome to all the speakers, Dr. Kumari from Sri Lanka, Dr. Sumarmi from Indonesia, and Dr. Vimal, who is also our collaborator for this international webinar and as one of the speakers. And we have started this meeting in Zoom Meet link, and there are a lot of participants waiting in the YouTube, and we are sharing that also. We have already shared it and they are connecting with us. And at this juncture, I wanted to inform all the participants and our authorities and all the speakers that the total number of registered participants is 2,106, and the total number of international participants are 130 from 15 countries, including India, representing 5 continents. And we have participants from Australia, Canada, UK, Sudan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Singapore, Malaysia, Bhutan, and of course our Indonesia. And we are also part of this international webinar. With these few words, I welcome all the participants. Now, I invite Dr. S. Kausalya, Registrar, Madam, to inaugurate this webinar. Thank you, Madam, and welcome you.
Thank you. At the outset, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kalpana, for welcoming all the dignitaries and participants. I'm very glad that Avanashlingam Institute started as Home Science College in 1957, emerged as a deemed to be university in 1988 under the dynamic leadership of our first Chancellor, Dr. Avanashlingam Ayya, who was the Education Minister, and the leadership of Dr. Rajamal P. Devdas, a doyen of nutritional sciences in India and an international home scientist too. So we have grown under these visionaries, and today we stand as a tall institute with UGC's accreditation of with all the requirements and NAC accreditation with 3.49 with A+, and we have very experienced teaching and non-teaching staff, and we have very exciting students who want to pursue higher education not only in India but also abroad and gain the experience of nutritional sciences and all the other branches. We have 7 schools, and 1 school is home science, and we have physical and chemical sciences, and we have School of Biosciences, we have School of Arts and Social Sciences, we have School of Engineering, we have School of Education. And of course, our managing trustee, Dr. Meenakshi Sundaram Anda, who's giving us all the guidance and the right path shown by the visionaries, and our respected and honorable Chancellor Padma Shri, Dr. P.R. Krishna Kumar, who could not join us. Similarly, Dr. Premavati Vijayan, our Vice Chancellor, though could not join, all the 3 leaders of our institute have conveyed their best wishes and greetings to all of us to go ahead with this important, significant seminar, the international webinar on COVID-19 and food and nutrition security scenario in South and Southeast Asia. I congratulate the Department of Food Science and Nutrition of our institute under the dynamic leadership of Dr. Tirumani Devi, who is heading the department, and Dr. Vasuki Raja, Dean, who is directing the School of Home Science, and the 2 moderators, Dr. C.A. Kalpana and Dr. Bala Seshireka, who has initiated this program meticulously with all care. And I appreciate Dr. Vimal Karani, whom I met in another seminar 2 weeks back on nutrigenomics, who is also the doyen internationally in nutrigenomics now, who is going to speak on a new topic. And we are waiting to hear you, sir. And I have great pleasure, along with Dr. Kalpana, to welcome Dr. Kumari Ratnayanga, from a leader from the Vayamba University of Sri Lanka, and Professor Dr. Sumami from University of Sri Lanka, Surabaya, Indonesia, and Dr. Vimal Karoni from University of Reading, United Kingdom. And I am very happy to welcome all the participants at the outset joining from different countries at this moment, because it's a very important topic. As we know, our life is based on food, air, and shelter, and definitely on water, and why we have gathered here. And we thank Dr. Vimal Karani also for enlightening us with his connectivity and with his, actually I congratulate him and Dr. Kalpana for making us sign an MOU with our institute. I also thank the Nutrition Society of India, Coimbatore chapter, and I thank the headquarters under the leadership of Dr. Hemalata for permitting this webinar. At the outset, as I said, this is a very important webinar, and I would like to recall in the Indian scenario the contributions of Dr. C. Subramaniam and Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, the international scientist who has contributed to the green revolution in India and also for the food and nutrition security at international level. He is a living legend, and of course we have to recall the contributions of Dr. C. Gopalan, whom we lost recently, and Dr. Rajamal P. Devadas, our own first Vice Chancellor, who initiated an FAO project on post-harvest losses and training way back in 1980s. So at the outset, as I say, all of us know about the importance of food and nutrition security, and the food security, as we know, even as an undergraduate student, we study access to food at all times, at all places, by all people. So by all means. So that the question is that whether the food is secure or insecure, in what way we are facing in COVID-19, and nutrition security, as all of you know, with the environment, with the absorption, accessibility, and it depends finally on it ultimately leads to healthy life. So where we start the food security, and all of us know the 4 pillars of food security as laid down by the FAO is availability, access, utilization, and stability. All these depends on various factors. Depending on the country, the culture, the climatic conditions, food production, and the harvest, post-harvest losses, and what we gain as ultimately the food production to what is food intake. So we can just say as international food security, which I think the speakers, the well-renowned speakers, are going to talk about the South and Southeast Asian food and nutrition security at different angles. And I want the participants also to note the points and also raise as suggestions or questions towards the end of this important webinar. So what I thought, actually, basically, I'm a food scientist and I've become administrator recently. So my urge was, during this COVID, I thought when we talk about international food security, and we have listened to the pointers given by the G20, that is the meeting, agricultural ministers meeting held during April. And when we have thought about the loss in food production, though the food was adequate, there was loss during the storage, and it could not be distributed throughout the country. For example, in India, I think the same situation prevailed even other states, other countries also, because in India initially the transport was prohibited and the borders of each state was closed. So whatever is the produce from each state could not be distributed to other places, and this was the scenario. And the post-harvest loss also during storage and during COVID was given clearly by the ICAM. So when they have estimated a target, and I want the international speakers will agree with me and all the participants from India, how this Food Security Act was brought recently by none other than our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, under the Act. And actually on the Women's Day, he started this, and this scheme covered all the privileged group, that is the pregnant and lactating women, and of course children. It was aimed actually to target that this undernutrition and malnutrition should be free from all the targeted population in India by 2021 to 22 actually. I think the projections say that this will not be met and this may not be met, and we have to take measures. And rightly, the Indian government now, with the ministry's help and all the acting coordinators at state level, from the minister till the Food Corporation of India, which has a responsibility to procure, store, and distribute the food grains and commodities to the public, which will fulfill the household food security. So this is through the public distribution system in India. And I want the speakers at the international level to understand that there are differences in the economic point of view from the consumers in India with high income, middle income, and low income, both in urban sectors, rural sector, and tribal sectors. So here, when you say as tribal sectors, poorest of the poor definitely suffer. But the Food Corporation of India and public distribution system is so well defined. It is a very highly advantageous system for the people in India, especially in Tamil Nadu, where we come from the southern region, that food commodities, right from for the monthly ration, rice is given, parboiled rice as well as raw rice, and also wheat is also given, but rice is given in huge amounts for a family compared to wheat, and sugar is given as per the number of people prevailing in the family, and also oil and other commodities. So this is well-defined system where during the initial stages, a token system was given by the PDS to all the people, and they were able to meet the food and nutrition security. Coming to this I think will help the macronutrient supply. What about the micronutrient supply? Of course, all is also given in the PDS system, but micronutrients, as we always say, the food scientists and nutrition scientists and social scientists will definitely agree with me that nutrition garden in terms of raising kitchen garden or community garden play a major role in fulfilling the needs for micronutrients, especially vitamins and minerals. When everyone talks about immunity now to protect from the danger of COVID-19, when our chancellor in an earlier webinar talked that this immunity can be, of course, the native immunity is there of an individual, but the immunity will be enhanced only for a period of, after a period of 45 days, 40 to 45 days. Even Dr. Hemalata posed this point, and how our eat well plate should dominate by vegetables and fruits and the other commodities, so that in toto, the macronutrient supply and micronutrient supply is fulfilled compared to the RDA. And apart from this, the functional food security also matters a lot. So I think it is at this point of time, I just leave the thoughts to the participants as well as to our dynamic speakers from global level who will now come out with brilliant ideas. And I think topics are very diverse from one country, like in Sri Lanka, the dignitary, the key speaker is going to talk about the issues of food security, but say how it is going to the COVID-19 food security and its impact. And again, even the speaker from Indonesia, Madam, I would like to say that we have signed even MOU with Vijaya University, and some of our colleagues have visited, and we would like to open this also to invite the other two speakers to sign MOU so that our thoughts and vision will go along at international level. And of course, Dr. Vimal Karani is already with us, and he has given many forums for research scholars and students as well. So when we are in this crisis, definitely I want the participants to know about the serious issue of this. Because everyone knows about the immunity, and immunity depends on food and nutrition security at the international level. Definitely household food security.
Okay. Serious.
Dr. Kausalya, could you please
Ma'am.
Right. Okay.
Could you please unmute your microphone?
You can unmute now. You are the co-host, Rana. Co-host, Rana. இல்ல அங்க பண்ண கூடாது. நான் பண்றேன்.
Sir, is it okay now?
Yes. Yeah.
We are able to hear, ma'am.
You were able to hear the earlier pointer?
Yes. Yeah. Please continue. Yeah.
No, I just finished. I wanted to
Yeah,
conclude.
she said thank you.
Okay,
She said
okay.
thank you.
When you just called me, I just concluded. I
Okay,
wanted
okay.
Yeah,
time to.
I could
Thank you,
hear
thank you
ma'am
so much.
telling thank you. Ma'am, as moderator of the international webinar, I thank our registrar, Madam, respected registrar, Madam Dr. S. Kausalya, for inaugurating the international webinar with a very enlightening speech covering all aspects of food security. As a food scientist, ma'am is also a professor, director of food science and nutrition, and she's also the convener of the Nutrition Society of India, Coimbatore chapter. So we had a very vast information from your brief speech, madam, and we hope that the international webinar which we are conducting will bring laurels to our department as well as the university. Thank you, madam, for that wonderful inaugural address. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now we'll go on to the next speaker, our professor and head of the department, Dr. A. Tirumani Devi. I invite her to give her greetings to this international webinar.
మ్యూట్లో మ్యూట్లోగానే ఉంది అన్మ్యూట్లో ఉందా
Ma'am, please unmute your.
உங்களுடைய கூப்பிடு போன்ல கூப்பிடு மம்மி போன் எடுத்து வச்சாங்க
Yeah.
வெச்சியா
Ma'am.
నువ్వు అన్మ్యూట్ చేయి
Yes, ma'am is there. Facing.
HOD ma'am, you can greet the audience, ma'am.
Yes. Very good morning to all. My humble and sincere prayers to God Almighty, our respected Ayya and
దాంట్లో రాలేదా
நீ போன் பேசி ஸ்பாட்லைட் வந்து போல்ல ஸ்பாட்லைட் வந்து
మళ్ళీ తెలియదు
ஸ்பாட்லைட் இஸ் ரோட் மாடல் அது வந்து ஆப்ஷன் ரோட் ஆடுறது అందులో స్క్రీన్ ఉంటుంది ఆ మాటలు ఎన్ని ఉంటుంది
mortality rate like what public health. The impact of pandemic is found to have nutrition improve. Public is ever food consumption country and almost to various groups so that all required nutrient adequate amount well. Security can ensure through food availability, access to food issue member society and promote the level of dietary diversity necessary to avoid high rate of malnutrition. Similarly, India has recorded the self-sufficiency in production of food grains in 1917 itself. The world's largest producer of milk, pulse, and millet, and second largest producer of rice, wheat, sugarcane, groundnuts, vegetables, and fruits. But it is a question of adequate intake of all the food groups by each and every Indian individual. Apart from these food and nutritional insecure conditions, at present, the COVID-19 lockdown period, there are additionally economical and psychological stress, restricted time to purchase of essential commodities, reduced physical activities to utilize the intake and nutrients, etc. As our Dr. Kausalya Registrar Ma'am informed us, our government also taken up all helping efforts to distribute all food grains through public distribution system along with the financial support to manage the possible food and nutrition in secure condition at family level. Hence, it is very necessary to adopt healthy nutritional practices
I think she is having some connection problems.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not able to hear it all.
Dr. Tirumani Devi, we are not able to hear you. I think there's some connection issues.
Accepting this webinar. Is it audible?
She's finished.
Yeah.
Ma'am, she's finished.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Keep talking, please.
Ma'am, please start, ma'am. Continue.
Dr. Tirumani, you can continue.
I wish please thank Registrar Madam Dr. S. Kaushalya for inaugurating this webinar. Thank you, Madam. I wish all the very best to the eminent resource and Karoni, all their expertise, inspiring deliberation. I wholeheartedly congratulate all participants
Yeah, I
Madam,
think she has finished. John.
I think ma'am has finished.
yes.
I take this opportunity and I'm happy to thank our dear Professor and Head of the Department, Dr. Tirumani ma'am, for your greetings, madam. And so
Thank
we will start the session now, ma'am.
Yes, please. Thank you, Kalpana. Go ahead.
To all the participants who had joined us late, as moderator, I'm Dr. C.A. Kalpana, Associate Professor in the Food Science and Nutrition Department of Avinashi Institute. And my co-moderator will join us soon. She's already here and she will be joining us, Dr. Balasashireka. Once again, I want to inform all of you that at this international webinar, we had 2,106 participants with 103 participants from the international and from representing 15 countries and 5 continents. So now these are the speakers and we are going to start with the first session with speaker and I invite my co-moderator, Dr. Balasashireka, to introduce the speaker, Dr. Kumari.
Good morning to one and all present here. I'm happy to introduce the speaker of this session, Dr. Kumari Ratnayake. Dr. Kumari Ratnayake obtained her BSc Special Degree in Nutrition with a first-class honors from Vayamba University of Sri Lanka, MPhil in Food and Nutrition from University of Peradeniya, and PhD in Human Nutrition from the Department of Food and Nutritional Sciences, University of Reading, United Kingdom. She has been awarded Commonwealth Scholarship on merit basis to pursue her PhD in United Kingdom. She started her academic career as a lecturer in the Department of Applied Nutrition, Vayamba University of Sri Lanka, and currently she is working as the Senior Lecturer, Head of the Department of Applied Nutrition, Vayamba University of Sri Lanka. Further, she had served the Council of the Nutrition Society of Sri Lanka as a council member and as Joint Secretary. Ma'am, we wholeheartedly welcome you to this webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for your nice introduction. So, shall I share the screen now?
Yes, Dr.
Yes,
Kumari,
yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to mute everyone's microphone.
Yeah.
So you will have to unmute yourself.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, please go on.
Okay, I'll share.
Thank you.
So it says that host disable participant screen sharing. Dr. Vimal?
Yeah, can you see the sharing?
Yeah, host disable participant screen sharing. So when I'm going to share.
Yeah, please share.
Okay, now okay, fine. Thank you. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes, ma'am,
Yes,
please proceed.
yes.
Okay, so first of all, I should be thankful for the organizing committee, the Dr. Kalpana, and also introducing me to this webinar, Dr. Vimal, for introducing me for this the webinar, the important webinar, a timely important webinar on the food and nutrition security. So as you can see, the title of my presentation is the COVID-19 food and nutrition crisis. So I'm going
Dr.
to
Kumari,
talk about.
sorry. Dr. Kumari,
Yes.
can you put it as a slideshow?
Okay, sure. Actually, I'm sharing the PDF one.
Okay, so if you can enlarge your screen or
Okay.
no, that's too big.
Okay, I will share my other one. That's no. okay now?
I'm not able to see it. You have to stop sharing and again you have to share again.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you have to do a slideshow.
Yes, slideshow now.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for that. So
No problem.
okay, so so the topic which I have been given to talk on this webinar is the COVID-19 food and nutrition crisis. And this talk, I'm going to talk about what impacts are expected and how to protect. So the presentation, the content will be, so I'm going to talk about concept of food and nutrition security. As in the inaugural the talk, Dr. Kaushalya explained well. So the concept of food and nutrition security, and so I'm going to talk about COVID-19 impacts on food and nutrition security. So what are the effective measures to overcome the food and nutrition security the crisis? And at the end of this webinar, so I'm happy to answer the questions raised by the participants on this impact on food and nutrition security with the COVID-19 pandemic. So as the Dr. Kalpana explained, so the food and nutrition security. So I'm going to read out this food and nutrition security definition, emphasizing important terms. So food and nutrition security exists when all people, all times have physical, social, and economic access to food which is consumed in sufficient quantity and quality to meet their dietary needs and food preferences. In here, I would like to emphasize the terms sufficient quantity and quality. And again, so I would like to emphasize the food and so when it comes to the food, so earlier we talk about food security. Later, the term nutrition is added to this food security. So it is supported by an environment of adequate sanitation, health services, and care, which allows for a healthy and active life. So when we consider this food and nutrition security both, the nutrition security is more than food security. So when we consider the evolution of underlying concepts behind the food security, so as Dr. Kalpana exactly mentioned, so there are 4 dimensions when consider the food security. Actually, so if someone is food secure, it means that the freedom from hunger. In here, they consider only the hunger without the aspects of the nutrition security. As Dr. Kalpana explained, so the food and nutrition security. So I'm going to about this food and nutrition security.
Dr. Kumari, can you unmute yourself? Dr. Kumari, can you unmute yourself?
Sure.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay. So this the food security has got 4 dimensions. So this availability of food, access to food, utilization, and stability. So when we consider the nutrition security, so so these 3 the determinants have been added. So in addition to this, the 4 major dimensions: access to adequate food, care and feeding practices, sanitation, and health. So when we are measuring the food security, you can measure in terms of individual wise or household wise. So if we consider the individual food security, you can measure so whether it's mild food insecurity, moderate food insecurity, severe food insecurity. These are the scale of the food insecurity. So if someone is experiencing the mild food insecurity, this person is always worrying about ability to obtain food. So that is how they measure in terms of the worrying about ability to obtain food. So they categorize them as mild food insecurity. So when it comes to moderate food insecurity, so they categorize so those who are experiencing the food insecure in terms of quality as well as the quantity. So when it comes to the severe food insecurity, so this the people will experiencing hunger. So this just to give a brief introduction or the brainwashing of the concept of food security. So, when we consider, so when I would like to move into my topics related to today's talk. So the COVID-19 pandemic has led to dramatic loss of human life across the world and presents an unprecedented challenge with the deep social and economic consequences, including compromising the food and nutrition security. This statement was stated by the Food and Agriculture Organizations. So you can see that this COVID-19 pandemic has a severe effect on the food and nutrition security of a particular country. So, and again, so I would like to emphasize that the COVID-19 pandemic has all the makings of a perfect storm for the global malnutrition. So the crisis will damage the nutritional status of vulnerable groups such as pregnant mothers, lactating mothers, and also children under 5 years through multiple mechanisms. So I'm going to explain these mechanisms, how this COVID-19 pandemic will affect for the global the malnutrition. So these are the vulnerable group, as I explained before, pregnant mothers and lactating mothers, children under 5 years. So these will be really affected due to this this COVID-19 pandemic. So we can expect a dangerous decline in dietary quality in low and middle income countries. So stemming from the income losses due to government mandated shutdowns and deglobalizations, as well as freezing of food transfer schemes such as school the feeding programs, as well as the breakdown of food markets due to both demand shocks and supply constraints. And further, so when we consider this this pandemic, so this so this will affect for the healthcare failure and diversions towards combating the COVID-19. So due to this actually, so you know this because of the healthcare system, they have been given priority for the combat the COVID-19. So due to reassigning responsibilities of maternal and child healthcare providers to combat the COVID-19, and also jeopardize regular but the life-saving efforts to prevent and treat infections and tropical diseases. So because of this prioritizing these healthcare facilities to COVID-19 pandemics, there will be such jeopardizing the regular life-saving efforts to prevent and treat the infections and tropical disease. Further, so there will be drastic declines in the antenatal, neonatal, and essential maternal, infant, and child healthcare facilities. So this has dramatically, or this has really affected for the immunization programs of the country in Sri Lanka, and also other, I hope that in India as well, nutrition counseling, micronutrient supplement distribution programs. So that means vitamin A supplementations or the folic acid and iron supplements distribution program has been affected, and also the distribution of oral rehydration salts, as well as therapeutic food for home treatment of acute malnutrition. And again, so it has been affected to save in person-to-person treatment consultation as well. So all these will affect for the nutritional status of these vulnerable populations. And again, as you all know that, so this the exclusive breastfeeding and breastfeeding practices, as well as the young child, infant, and feeding practices are a major thing that we have to consider when it comes to the nutritional status of these vulnerable, especially the the young children. So because of this, the COVID-19 pandemic, so it has been affected too. So there will be disruptions to imports of crucial nutritional products and also switching to breast milk substitutes. Some mothers are fearing that the passing of coronavirus through the breast milk, therefore they have been switched to breast milk substitutes, as well as the limited breastfeeding promotion and counseling may affect for these the young child feeding and practices. So this will really affect for the nutritional status of these the vulnerable population. And again, when we consider the food supply chain, I think so everyone knows this supply chain starting from the farm to plate, or starting from farm to fork. So the key persons involving in this food supply chain are farmer, processor, and also these transportation and storage, the logistics, and also the consumer. So this the COVID-19 pandemic has impact the interrupted the food productions. So it has impacts on the movement of agricultural labor, as you know that. So this the agriculture labor, so they live in a the far away from their the fields, paddy fields. Because of this these pandemics, they have to move to their homes. So this has highly impact on the food production, as well as the breakdown of supply of raw materials. So this is also this has been also affected due to this pandemic, and also basic aversion behavior by workers, traders, as well as the shortage of fertilizers, veterinary medicines, and other inputs also be affected with this the pandemic situation. All these factors will finally affect the food production of the country. So, and further, when we consider the disruptions to supply chains for nutrition, the nutrient-rich foods. Actually, so when we consider these food, so these supply chains, the disruptions of supply chain has been affected much for the nutrient-rich foods. So because these, the breakdown of fragile supply of chains, like most of the nutrient-rich the foods are perishables, like meat, fish, so milk. So these things will be highly affected due to this disruption of the supply chain, and also delay in public food distribution programs, and also the breakdown of food related logistics services. I know definitely you may have experienced these things in your the countries. So this limited accessibility to nutritious food is actually really directly linked with the deteriorating of the nutritional status of these vulnerable the groups. You can see these in this the pictures. It's clearly what I want to say that. So this you can see in these shelves. So this fruit and vegetables, it's empty shelves, and also that you can see in this the notice. Due to supply challenges, we will have to temporarily limit the following. So these meat the items. So and again, it has affected for the fish, the fishing community as well. So these things we considered as nutritious food. Due to this the COVID pandemic, so it has been affected for this the production of these nutritious food. So and again, so with this the COVID-19 pandemic, so you may have experiencing that. So this the declines in purchasing ability and demand. So due to unemployment and reduced income. So so this with this pandemic, most of them have experienced unemployment, as well as so the due to that, so it will reduce their income. And also they may spend less, resulting in shrinking the demand. So then it automatically shrink the demand. And also as I earlier explained, that large decline in the animal protein consumption due to fear of corona. So that is the actually the due to the wrong myths in the society. So, with all these factors, what has happened in the community is that the people have been shifted to monotonous, nutrient-poor diets. So that is actually the final. So they just eat the food, the quantity. They don't think about the quality. So the economic crisis will affect diets primarily through declining demand for main sources of essential micronutrients in the diets. So as I earlier explained, unemployment and drastic declines in income will force vulnerable households to quickly give up nutrient-rich foods in order to preserve their caloric intake. So they just consider their caloric intake without thinking about the nutrient-rich foods. So they may be expensive, they can't afford it, so they may go for the monotonous nutrient-poor diet. So this will affect for the nutritional status of these vulnerable population. So as a summary, I would like to brief this, what I talked about the impacts of COVID impacts on the food and nutrition security. So I have lined up here all these the impacts. So there is an impact on the healthcare sector. So because of the diversion towards the combating the COVID-19 pandemic, and there will be a decline in the dietary quality, and also the declines in the purchasing ability or the purchasing power, and also the interruption in food productions and limited accessibility to nutritious food, and also the disruption of food supply chains leading to food crisis. And again, so all these will affect for the shift to the monotonous nutrient poor diets in vulnerable households. All these factors will affect for the global malnutrition. So you can see the clear link between this COVID-19 pandemic and the global malnutrition.
Kumari,
Yes.
you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So poor nutrition in turn weakens the immune system and can jeopardize the body's ability to fight a COVID-19 infections. So I would like to emphasize what are the effective measures to overcome this crisis. I will just read it out. So keep agri-food system functioning. So that is what we can do, especially the home gardening, and the agri-food system should be properly functioned. And the other thing is facilitate food systems innovation. So stimulate innovative and safe food delivery system with employment opportunities. So you can see this, the vendor is just looking and keeping their food, so no one needs to buy. So we have to stimulate innovative and safe food delivery system with employment opportunities. And again, so support enhanced homestead food production. So we have to encourage home gardening, use surplus household labors, including women in the household to engage in this home gardening, especially the increased access to nutrient-rich vegetables, fruits, and the eggs. And also by that we can improve the diet quality. And the next one, find innovative ways to stimulate demand for nutrient-rich foods. So you can, we need a contribution from the national leaders and national media to urge their population to keep consuming healthy diets. We can use the media to educate the people to the importance of eating the healthy diets, and also stimulating demand for protective nutrient-rich foods and encouraging appropriate infant and young child feeding practices through the social media and messaging. And again, so the other measure is that use social safety net programs to improve dietary quality, not just quantity. What I want to emphasize is not the quantity. So we have to consider the quality. So with innovative programs. So and again, so we have to prevent the collapse of basic maternal and child healthcare services. That is actually we have not thought of that. So we have to keep going of this, the maintaining the basic preventive and curative healthcare services, especially for the mothers and young children. So, and finally, I want to tell that we have to invest in WASH urgently. You know this, what is WASH? Safely manage water, sanitation, hygiene services are an essential part of preventing and protecting human health during this infectious pandemic. So therefore, we have to increase access to hand washing stations and public announcements and mobile messaging to raise the awareness and nudge individuals into more hygienic routines. So we had to ramp up support to community-based management of acute malnutrition. So we have to boost the community level screening and referrals, and also we have to introduce regular monitoring and surveillance systems to the catch of the assess the vulnerable the populations of the community. So we need to protect women and children because you know that due to this pandemic, the women are in economic stress as well as social distancing will increase the risk of domestic violence and psychological stress. So therefore, social protection and other relief programs need to prioritize women and children. So, and also there should be, we have to set up a scale up of food and nutrition security surveillance systems to monitor the vulnerable populations. So finally, I would like to say that, so this is the Sri Lanka, what we have prioritized, how we have prioritized these actions. So we have integrated nutrition in COVID-19 response and recovery, and we are supporting the capacity of health systems to deliver, and also we prioritize the needs of the most vulnerable, and finally sustain the functioning of the local food system. So I would like to wind up my presentation while keeping the statement with you. Everyone has a right to eat safe, healthy and nutritious food, and it is a shared responsibility to ensure food security and human health to combat COVID-19. So thank you very much for organizing or inviting me to this the webinar. And finally, I would like to thank all the healthcare workers on the front lines of the coronavirus pandemic. So thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, you can raise at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much. I hope I managed time.
Kumari,
Yes.
could you please stop sharing the screen?
Okay, sure. I should stop.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kumari, for that wonderful presentation, especially the community-based intervention. You had covered almost all areas as the participants would have seen the presentation. It was really very much interesting, explanatory. And of course, you had mentioned your recommendations and suggestions and your impacts of COVID-19 on the healthcare system, on the food system, on the food processing area. And I was so very happy when you mentioned about the focusing on women and children. And we hope that we will definitely have more interactions with Dr. Kumari in future. And thank you very much, madam, for
Thank you so much.
accepting our invitation and giving us this wonderful speech. Now we will move on to the next speaker. So our next speaker is Professor Dr. Sri Sumarmi. She has obtained her doctoral degree from Airlanka University, Surabaya. She has conducted many training programs, workshops, and short courses. She has received a grant from several funding agencies like District Government of Probolinggo, East Java, Food Security Board District of Probolinggo, Indonesian Ministry of Health, Directorate of Health Proportion, Indonesian Ministry of Health, Directorate of Public Nutrition, etc., and completed 14 projects. She has published in the past 5 years around 12 articles in international and national journals. And she's also a reviewer for scientific journals like BMC Public Health Journal, Jordan Journal of Biological Science, Indonesian Journal of Public Health, National Public Health Journal, Food and Nutrition Journal, and Amarta Nutrition Journal, that is a media gizi Indonesia. I'm happy to welcome Professor Dr. Sri Sumarmi. She's professor in the Department of Nutrition, Faculty of Public Health, Universitas Airlangga, Surabaya, which is the second largest city in Indonesia. And she will be presenting us on the topic household food security and its impact on nutritional status of children and experience in Indonesia during COVID-19 pandemic. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalpana. Good afternoon, everyone. I will try to present my PP here. Let me share my file.
Or can we share it, madam? Can we share it?
Yes, no, I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it clear?
Yes,
Everyone
ma'am. You have to go to that slideshow, please.
Okay.
Yes, madam, proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I would like to say thank you for Dr. Kosaya, and the Registrar of Afina Science and Higher Education for Women.
Thank you, ma'am.
Coimbatore, India. And I would also like to thank for Dr. Kalpana and also Professor Dr. Kumani Devi, head of Food Science and Nutrition Department of Afina Shillingham Institute of Home Science and Higher Education for Women. And yeah, now I would like also to greeting a friend of mine, Dr. Vimal Karani, Department of Nutrition, University of Reading, United Kingdom, and also for Dr. Kumari from Department of Applied Nutrition, Wayamba University, Sri Lanka. Okay, nice to meet you in that incredible moment here. In the first presentation by Dr. Kumari, she presented about the relationship of COVID-19 pandemic and food security in context global or national level. But my presentation will focus on context in micro level, in household level. So, with the title of Household Food Security and its impact on nutritional status of children in an experience in Indonesia during COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, let me start to present my talk today. This will contain, and our discussion will contain COVID-19 situation in Indonesia and its policy, and then psychosocial impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and then the next about the people at risk for food security disturbance, and then household resilience for food and security, and the last one is impact of COVID-19 pandemic in nutrition program. Okay, let me begin with the current situation of COVID-19 in Indonesia. The first cases of COVID-19.
Dr. Sumarmi,
Yeah.
Can you please increase your voice to be louder, please?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it, everyone can hear my voice?
Yeah, now it's, I think it's audible. You can please increase the volume of you.
Yeah, maybe I will increase my volume.
Now it's clear. Proceed, madam. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, the first cases of COVID-19 were confirmed in Indonesia on March 2nd, 1990. Then by 15 March, the cases were getting exponential, increasing to 115 confirmed cases in Indonesia. So this slide, in this slide, you can see that the current cases as per 26 June is depicted that the more than 50,000 cases were confirmed now in Indonesia. And if you look at this graphic, that's reflected that the epidemiological curve of COVID-19 in Indonesia were not finished yet. It reflects that the attack rate of COVID-19 in Indonesia is still high in several cities, including in Surabaya, where I live. They become the red zone of COVID-19 in Indonesia. Surabaya, Jakarta, and then some cities in Sulawesi and Kalimantan. So, what are the policies from Indonesian government in response to this pandemic? Starting on March 15, President Joko Widodo had called for Indonesians to practice social distancing, and then followed by close down the schools, workplaces, and other public places. But this policy is different with the policy from other countries because it was not a full lockdown like in Wuhan, in Singapore, India, Italy, or other region. But instead of lockdown, the regulation taken by Indonesian president was so-called large-scale social restriction, or LSSR. The restrictions are implemented by local government with the approval of the Ministry of Health. So, what is the SSR is? The regulation of large-scale social restriction allowing regional or local government to restrict the mobility of people and goods in and out of the region. The law also defines a minimal restriction as including schooling from home and then work from home, limitation of physical worship, and limitation on public gatherings. So the first city that implemented the policy of large-scale social restriction is in capital city of Jakarta. It began at 10 April and then and on 5th June. This policy and then followed by the other city in Surabaya, the large-scale social restriction began at 29 April and then end on June 9. And this policy and then followed by other countries, the other regions. So in this slide, we will describe about what the effect of large-scale social restriction taken by Indonesian government. Once the large-scale social restriction was applied in several regions at the same time, many people lost income, then reducing people's ability to buy food. So this some people prone to loss of household food security. On the other side, due to the mobility restriction, social distancing rule, it was starting to impact the work termination for many labor in factories. So many people lost their job. Yes, according to online surveys conducted by the Indonesian Public Health Professional Union on 6 until 13 June 2020, the majority of people in Indonesia were feeling worried about their prospective life. They worried caused by pandemic situation, many restrictions applied by government. So the majority they worry about the social aspect, and then religion aspect, job aspect, economic aspect, as well as education aspect. This data was a result from online survey by the Indonesian Public Health Professional Union. The next slide, the following slide describe about the I'm focusing on the economic aspect, which is related to household access, food access as a proxy for household food security. Mostly 60% people loss of income, but on the other hand, more than 17% people have increasing household expenditure. Household expenditure mainly for internet purchase, for communication, very high utilization of internet. And then more than 9% respondents confess that they had work termination. So because of close of work, mostly 5% respondents confess that they work termination because of their workplaces were closed and other reasons. So in this situation will cause the decreased purchasing for many, also for many people, especially for vulnerable group. So who are the affected from large-scale social restriction? Of course, informal worker is very affected. The most affected from this policy or from this situation, pandemic situation. Informal, most of people in Indonesia work in informal sectors, like as a street vendors, and then online taxi driver, or motorcycle taxi driver, and also most of people in Indonesia as a factory laborers, and also as trader in traditional market. So this informal workers were very affected of the situation of COVID-19 pandemic. So in the next slide, I will describe about the effect of large-scale social restriction on food supply chain. Yeah, as the COVID-19 crisis unfolds, disruptions in domestic food supply chain, and then there are reducing food stock. There are reducing food stock in market or supermarket in city because food products from rural area may be difficult to distribute into the city because some highway or some access to the city, to central city, were closed and restricted to enter in the city, or because in this slide we describe the situation during May in East Java province. The vegetable commodities from Malang district, the high land area in southern area of Surabaya, as a central of fruit and vegetable production. They cannot distribute the vegetable production, their vegetable production into Surabaya city and other satellite city, because people in the city do not go to the market to buy some food. So then what happened for their vegetable products? Because vegetable product is vulnerable, perishable food production, and then they distributed vegetable for people in the street. I take this picture from the YouTube. You can check YouTube in this link. I show this link here. Yeah, they distributed vegetable for people in the street. Even they throw it into the river because it's hard to bring vegetable back to the village, because Malang district is highland area that produce fruit and vegetable commodities, and then for distributing to the some cities in East Java province. The following slide show the government or people effort to raise the household resilience from food insecurity during COVID-19. Area decide, local government provides staple food distribution program for vulnerable people, for vulnerable group. On the other side, there are solidarity among people in the community, solidarity movement in the community. So this point, solidarity is the best practice in Indonesian people to help others and other to resilience to food insecurity situation in household level. Some people.
Dr. Mami?
Yeah.
You have 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Some people raise the voluntary donation through the charity foundation and individually responsibility. Okay, next slide. People in middle and upper social economic class, food delivery services will be the good choice to access food for their family. Yeah, so it will assist the motorcycle taxi driver to get the job back, because they lost job during LSSR. So this is the smart solution. I think this is the smart solution for the taxi driver to get back the job. So, okay. What the government program in response to the hard situation? In short-term program, here the food security program from local government. There are social safety net program, open employment with labor intensive. And then in midterm program, there are utilization of idle land in the municipality or other district area for urban farming, especially in peri-urban farming. And then the idle land can be used as an urban farming. And in household level, utilization of home yard or home gardening for urban farming. And the picture reflect the picture is show that our major Ibu Risma, our major Surabaya major harvest the urban farming. Then the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and nutrition program. as we know that Indonesian before the pandemic faced the triple burden of malnutrition, including undernutrition and then hidden hunger caused by lack of essential micronutrients and overweight among children under 5. And during the pandemic, it will likely be getting worse as families lose of income and limited access to healthy food. And paradoxically, this could result both an increase in child stunting and wasting, and elevated prevalence of obesity due to increased intake of ultra-processed food high in sugar, salt, and fat. It is in accordance with Dr. Kumari presented previously that during pandemic, people eat the monotonous food. I think it's similar condition in Indonesia. So what about the program for child monitoring? The growth monitoring during pandemic, it stopped. This activity stopped. Yeah. Instead of growth monitoring in Posyandu, yeah, the cadre or village midwife do the home visit. Yeah. Posyandu is the integrated health services in village level by voluntary cadres and village midwives under supervision of public health centers in sub-districts. So people attending in the Posyandu now being stopped, and then instead of that activity, the health worker will active to do the home visit in village level. This my presentation. So thank you for your attention. And time back to Dr. Kalpana. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sumarni, can you stop that screen sharing?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sumarni, for highlighting upon the household food security at Indonesia. And of course, the household food security is very, very important in the present context. And your experience in Indonesia, we could see how it has affected. The impact is on the country also, just like our country. And thank you very much for enlightening us. And shall we go to the next speaker?
Yes.
So I'm happy to introduce the next speaker of the session and the last speaker, Dr. Vimal Karani, Associate Professor in Nutrigenetics and Nutrigenomics, University of Reading, United Kingdom. He is also our co-organizer, collaborator of this webinar, because we have a MOU with the University of Reading, UK, right from the year 2017. And Dr. Vimal was instrumental in establishing the MOU from the UK side. To introduce the speaker, though I am introducing the speaker in a few words, almost all the participants would have known him because he is always presenting on nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics in all the international webinars that you see for the past 3 months. Dr. Vimal Karani has received significant global media attention for his work on genes, nutrition, and chronic diseases, and has given more than 150 invited talks in the last 6 years. He has published extensively in areas related to nutrigenetics and non-communicable diseases, and presently has more than 775 peer-reviewed publications. And in the last 7 years, the grants that he has been associated with are of the value of £2.1 million. And he will be presenting his talk on B12 and cardiometabolic diseases, a focus on COVID-19 and nutrition security. Over to Dr. Vimal Karani.
Thank you, Dr. Kalpana. Let me share the screen.
direct experience person.
Excuse me, participants. If you have any questions, you can share it in the chat box. Participants, you can share your questions in the chat box. Over to you, sir.
You see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes,
Okay.
It's visible, Dr. Vimal, proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very good morning and a very good afternoon to everyone who have joined the session today. And today I'm going to talk to you all about B12 and cardiometabolic diseases in relation to COVID-19 and nutrition security. Already the two speakers have already given a lot of information about food security and nutrition security, but I'm going to focus more on the B12 micronutrient and its relationship with cardiometabolic diseases. So briefly touching upon food security and nutrition security. So as mentioned before by the registrar and also by the speakers, the food security, the four important dimensions of the food security are the availability, access, utilization, and stability. So you might have availability of the food and access to the food, but there might be an issue with the utilization as well. So that is the aspect that I'm going to focus today. But nutrition security is more to do with a community's access to the essential nutrients. So looking at the balance between food security and nutrition security, the main problem arises when the food insecure households, when they sacrifice the food quality over food quantity in order to avoid the state of hunger. So when they try to favor the quantity over quality, that is when we have the main problem, which is the malnutrition. And we all know that malnutrition is one of the most important risk factor for the development of cardiometabolic diseases, such as obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. So given the global pandemic situation, what is happening around the world at the moment? We have this main problem, which is the COVID-19, which is going on at the moment. And we all know that individuals who are obese and who have cardiovascular disease and who have type 2 diabetes, they have an increased risk of acquiring COVID-19 infection. So if you can prevent malnutrition, you can prevent cardiometabolic diseases, and which can help you from fighting against the development of COVID-19. So as part of this malnutrition, I'm just going to focus on one particular micronutrient, which is the vitamin B12, which is a very important micronutrient. Not many people actually know that they are B12 deficient. And what are the main sources of B12? Just to give you an idea about the B12 sources, one is the oily fish, which is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and all the meat-related products, and of course the dairy products such as cheese and eggs, and also the oysters and crabs. So as you can see, B12 is quite predominant mainly in the non-vegetarian foods. And not many people in India, for example, if you take in South India, most of them are vegetarians. And that is one of the reasons why many people in South Asia or Southeast Asia, they are deficient, because they do not have good source of B12 in their diet. And that has become one of the main reasons why there is a very high prevalence of cardiometabolic diseases. But the main question today is whether B12 deficiency is related to cardiometabolic diseases. A lot of studies have shown that B12 deficiency has been linked to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and also cardiovascular disease. But there is also a possibility of looking at the relationship between cardiometabolic diseases and B12 deficiency. That is, people who are obese or people who are diabetic or people who have cardiovascular disease, they can also have low levels of B12. So is it the B12 deficiency that is contributing to cardiometabolic disease, or is it the cardiometabolic disease that is contributing to B12 deficiency? So that is the most important question for my session today. So that is what I'm going to answer at the end of my talk. So you could do an epidemiological study, doing a population-based study, get information about the B12 deficiency, get information about the cardiometabolic diseases, and you can test whether the exposure is associated with the disease. For example, whether B12 deficiency is associated with cardiometabolic disease. But when doing an epidemiological study, there are two important facts that we need to remember. One is basically the confounding factor. Because when you test for the association between an exposure and outcome, there is always a third factor which can affect the interpretation of the relationship. And secondly, the reverse causation. What is reverse causation? So one is where we are looking at B12 deficiency leading to cardiometabolic disease, but it could also be the other way around. Cardiometabolic diseases can also lead to B12 deficiency. So in order to understand this aspect about the relationship between B12 and cardiometabolic diseases, so I initiated this genetic approach of understanding how this relationship could be interpreted. So the genetic approach is basically where, for example, if I'm testing for the association between X and Y, that is B12 deficiency and cardiometabolic disease, obviously we'll have confounding factors. But to overcome this main level of confounding, I used the genetic variants which are proxies for the exposure. So I test for the association between the genetic variant and the outcome, which is the cardiometabolic diseases. So this approach is very effective because the genetic associations are less prone to confounding and they are free from reverse causation. So that's why the best approach would be to do a genetic study rather than a general epidemiological study. So in order to do this, looking at the B12 and cardiometabolic diseases, so I looked at the cardiometabolic genes that are associated with cardiometabolic outcomes, which have been shown in other studies. And also I looked at the B12 genes, which have been shown to be associated with B12 deficiency. So if you have defect in these cardiometabolic genes or any variations in the B12 genes, they can contribute to the cardiometabolic diseases and the B12 deficiency respectively. But what I did in my genetic study is that I looked at the association of the cardiometabolic genes with B12 deficiency and B12 genes with cardiometabolic outcomes. So that will give me a better understanding of the relationship between cardiometabolic diseases and B12 deficiency. And I didn't stop with this. I also wanted to know how the diet is having an impact on these associations. That is, I looked at the lifestyle factors. One is the diet, because some people who might be consuming a diet which is rich in B12, but still they have cardiometabolic diseases and they have low B12 status. Why? So I wanted to answer that question. And also people doing lots of physical activity, going for a run, doing lots of exercise, but still they have very low levels of B12. What could be the reason? So that is what I try to answer as part of my research, for which I made use of the data from the Genuine collaboration, which I've been leading for the last 6 years. Genuine stands for the gene-nutrient interactions, how the dietary factors, they interact with your genes and contribute to different disease outcomes. And I've implemented these gene-nutrient interaction studies in various developing and developed countries. These are some of the publications from my PhD students, and these are funding organizations which have supported my research work. So going into these studies, so I'm going to give you some examples of the studies where I've explored the relationship between B12 deficiency and cardiometabolic diseases in 3 important lower middle income countries. One is India, one is Sri Lanka, and the third one is Indonesia. So these are the data that I'm going to share with you all in a few minutes. So the first study was done in the Asian Indian population. So where we basically looked at individuals with diabetes and individuals who were controls. And here we explored the relationship between metabolic diseases and B12 status using a genetic approach. So this study was carried out in the Chennai population, basically from South India. And you all know what the diet is for the South Indian population. So in this figure, on the x-axis, you find the metabolic genetic risk. On the y-axis, you find the B12 levels. And you can see that the red bars are high genetic risk and the blue bars are low genetic risk. And as you can see, individuals with very high genetic risk, they have significantly lower levels of B12. So which is actually a very clear indication of what the 4 dimensions of food security I was mentioning in the beginning of my talk. One is the availability. You can have the foods available. You can also have access to the foods. But the third one is the utilization, where even though you're able to consume foods with B12, but your body is not utilizing it because of the defect in your genes. There could be an issue with the absorption. So that could be one of the reasons why you still have low vitamin B12 levels, despite the fact you're consuming a very healthy diet. So genetic susceptibility plays a very important role, and this study clearly highlighted that point. And the second study was carried out in a Sri Lankan population, and here again, we focused on the metabolic disease and the vitamin B12 status. And as you can see from the figure, we first tested whether the genetic risk for B12 deficiency, does it have any impact on cardiometabolic diseases? So we wanted to look at central obesity, because central obesity is one of the main risk factors for the development of cardiovascular disease, especially in Asian countries. But to our surprise, we did not find any association between B12 genetic risk and central obesity in Sri Lankan population. But what we identified was, when we looked at the lifestyle factors such as the dietary factor, we found a very significant interaction with the protein intake. That is, individuals who are consuming high amounts of protein-rich foods, more than the dietary recommended allowance for protein intake, when they were crossing the limits of consuming the protein intake, that was a time these individuals who had the high B12 genetic risk, they started to develop central obesity. So which means that the genetic risk alone cannot contribute to central obesity, but only in the presence of an unhealthy diet that can increase your genetic risk. So which is a clear indication that your diet also plays a very important role. It is not just your genes. Just because you have genetic risk doesn't mean that you are obese. No, you can still modify that genetic risk by consuming a healthy diet or sticking on to the dietary recommended allowance. So this study again showed the fact that the B12 genetic risk can contribute to central obesity under a dietary influence, such as a high protein diet. And the third study was, and of course, like central obesity is an indicator of the apple-shaped obesity. So apple-shaped obesity, the epidemiological studies have clearly shown that apple-shaped obesity is the main risk factor for the cardiovascular diseases, especially in South Asian countries. And the third study was done in Minangkabau women from Indonesia in a city called Padang, where we looked at the rural and the urban regions. And the Minangkabau community is the world's largest matrilineal community. This was done in collaboration with the Andalas University in Padang. So here again, we looked at the relationship between the metabolic disease and vitamin B12 status using a genetic approach. So in this figure, you can see that on the x-axis, you find the tertiles of fiber-rich foods, that is low, medium, and high intake of fiber-rich foods. On the y-axis, you find the HbA1c. HbA1c is a glycated hemoglobin, which is an indicator of type 2 diabetes. So the red bars are individuals who have high genetic risk, and the blue bars are individuals with low genetic risk. So if you look at this particular part of the figure, where you can see that individuals consuming low amounts of fiber-rich foods, if you consume high amounts of fiber-rich foods, which is considered to be a healthy diet, whereas individuals who are consuming low amounts of fiber-rich foods, and those who have a very high genetic risk, they seem to have very high levels, increased levels of HbA1c, glycated hemoglobin. So which is indicating the fact that the population who are consuming an unhealthy diet, low fiber foods, they have a very high genetic risk for developing type 2 diabetes, which was seen in terms of looking at the HbA1c, that is the glycated hemoglobin level. So this is again a clear indication of the fact that the B12 genetic risk can have an impact on a cardiometabolic disease such as type 2 diabetes. So just summarize the findings. So you all know that these are some of the traditional diets from India, Sri Lanka, and Indonesia. And I'm not sure how many people are actually following this on a daily basis. If you stick on to the traditional diets from all these countries, that there's nothing more healthier than that. But the main problem now is the urbanization, westernization of the diet, the lifestyle, various other factors. So the westernization is one of the main reasons why we have increased prevalence of cardiometabolic diseases all over Asia. So in summary, the main message is basically vitamin B12 deficiency may lead to metabolic disease through a dietary influence in South Asians and Southeast Asians, which I was able to confirm using a genetic approach. So what is a take-home message now? So my study has clearly shown the link between the B12 status and the cardiometabolic disease. That is low vitamin B12 status, that is, which means that the high genetic risk is associated with cardiometabolic diseases, of course, under the influence of a particular dietary factor. But if you look at the 4 dimensions of security, availability, access, utilization, and stability. Could you please mute your microphones? Thank you. So if you look at the 4 important dimensions of food security: availability, access, utilization, and stability. Availability and access is something that is not the main problem over here from the studies that I've shown you, but the main problem is basically the utilization. If you have a defect in your genes, which is something that you have to test and see whether you carry the B12 genetic risk, or a genetic risk for having low B12 status. If that is the situation, the only way by which you can overcome the genetic risk is by taking the B12 supplementation, which will enable you to prevent the development of cardiometabolic diseases. And if you don't have the cardiometabolic diseases, that will reduce the risk of acquiring the COVID-19 infection. So this is something that we all need to understand in terms of how this can be changed into a policy. Of course, like we need to do intervention studies, and further studies are required to be carried out before confirming this link between B12 and COVID-19. So on this note, I would like to thank all my collaborators, all the funding organizations, and all my team members and all my PhD students for supporting on this work. And finally, please don't forget to maintain the social distancing. And while maintaining the social distancing, also don't forget to eat a diet which is healthy in B12. And at the same time, if you realize that even though you're consuming a healthy diet, you're still having a B12 deficiency, please don't forget to take B12 supplementation under the guidance of a physician or a nutritionist or a dietitian, because you never know, you might carry the genetic risk. If you compare the UK population and the South Asian population, you can clearly see that in the UK population, the B12 deficiency is very less, like it's about 10% in the population. Whereas if you look at the South Asian population or Southeast Asian population, nearly 50% of the population, they have B12 deficiency. And one of the main reasons for that is a genetic susceptibility. And the worst scenario is half of them do not know that B12 deficiency exists in these populations. So unless you go and do a blood test, you will not know that you are B12 deficient. And the same thing applies to the vitamin D deficiency as well, because they are very, very prevalent especially in the Asian countries. So on this note, I would like to thank you all so much for listening to the talk. If you have any questions, you can drop me an email, or you can be in touch with me on Facebook and LinkedIn, as where you can find me as Vimal Karani. And thank you all so much, and happy to take any questions.
Dr. Vimal, can you please stop that sharing? Yes. Thank you, Dr. Vimal, for that brief but in-depth presentation on vitamin B12 and cardiometabolic diseases. We have seen almost all the participants who have here and have known you and seen you presenting in other webinars. They have only seen you as presenting in nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics. But this is a very new area of vitamin B12, especially when you highlighted on the bioavailability. And when now we are in the pandemic of COVID-19, we are almost telling everyone right from the beginning, previous years, that westernization and industrialization will take a toll. But now we are seeing that, and as you have mentioned in the presentation. Over to Dr. Bala Sashireka the moderator too for the session, the next session.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's the questions session. Registrar, ma'am, do you have any questions, ma'am? Ma'am, you have to unmute your audio, ma'am.
Can I ask Dr. Vimal Karani?
Yes, please.
Sir, it was a wonderful session. Very brainstorming too.
Thank you very much.
And I would like to say, as you said, the majority of the population in South Asia, especially South India, is vegetarian. So what is the take-home message that you give? Apart from supplementation, what is that you give? Because we have to take this message to the community to enhance the the availability of B12 from vegetable sources or vegetarian sources other than supplementation, and enhance bioavailability and minimize the risk of the genetic risk. One point. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you very much for the question. To begin with, first of all, I would suggest that please go and do a simple blood test and check whether you are vitamin D deficient or B12 deficient, because the main problem in these countries is that we do not know whether we are actually having that deficiency. And a long-term exposure, you might not see an immediate impact, but on a long-term exposure to the vitamin D deficiency or B12 deficiency, that is the reason why people develop obesity or type 2 diabetes or even cardiovascular disease once they cross 30 years or 35 plus. So please go and test the blood test. And secondly, the other option is basically the gene testing. So where they do the gene testing and they provide personalized nutrition or personalized diet therapies. But at this point of time, because like most of the cities in India and most of the countries are under lockdown, so that is not a possible or a feasible option at the moment. But if you intend to do something like that in future, please do get in touch with me. I can suggest very good personalized nutrition therapy centers and gene testing centers in India, and which are more reliable as well. So that is actually the main message. And at the same time, people who have the problem with the utilization because of the high genetic risk, one of the main reasons, of course, because of the genes which are involved in the utilization of the bioavailability of B12, if they have carry any genetic variations, that can have an impact on the B12 status. So the best way to do that would be B12 supplementation. But don't just take B12 supplementation, because there are some dosage impacts as well. So you might be having some chronic disease, and you might be on supplements as well. So you need to make sure that you're not crossing the supplement or the dosage of the B12 at the moment. So please go and consult a nutritionist or a dietitian or a physician in terms of improving your B12 status if you think you are B12 deficient based on the blood testing.
Thank you very much, sir. We will keep in touch with you. And to Madam Dr. Sri Sumami from Indonesia, I have a simple, perhaps I didn't understand better. You showed a bar diagram showing the psychosocial update of COVID-19, wherein you picturized as worried and very worried status as the impact. So what is the scale that you use to differentiate this worried? Of course, it's a data of government. Just I wanted a clarification, because many students who are working in the community or here, just a clarification on what scale was used to differentiate worried and very worried, if you can give. And what is that loss of income you stated as 58.59 and increased expenditure 17.8. So these two are related? The first question is the scale that was used, because it's very subjective when we say in terms of food security. I just wanted to have a picture, because ma'am, are you able to understand my question, ma'am? Am I clear? Ma'am?
Yes, Dr. Koswala, I get the point. Yeah, based on, okay, the data I took here, I took from the survey conducted by the Indonesian Public Health Professional Union. So this data, how to differentiate the status of worry and very worry, but because I did not doing this survey, and I just use this data. Whether the data of reduction of
Shall I answer that question?
loss of income, yeah, the percentage people, the percentage of people loss of income and increase, and the other hand, the increasing the expenditure. But yeah, there is not analysis to correlated this between two data. I only this is
You projected the public health information. Thank you so much. Okay, it was a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay,
I think Dr. Kumari wants to add something to that.
Shall I add
Dr.
something there?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, yeah. So when measuring food and nutrition security, there are standard questions introduced by the USDA Food Security Module. So there are standard set of subjective questions. Maybe from that they have categorized worry level.
Okay. I have one question for you, ma'am.
Yes.
For Dr. Kumari.
Yes, sure.
You said delay in PDS in Sri Lanka. How did, in the initial stages of COVID, the poor met the food requirement?
Sorry, would you be able to? Yes, I didn't get the question. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. You stated that there was a delay in PDS.
Yes.
In Sri Lanka. So how did the poor met the food requirement in the initial stages, especially the vulnerable group?
Yes, actually, so that is the thing. So at the initially, the Sri Lankan government, they focused on just giving some food, actually not thinking about the nutrition security. So actually the government gave the rupees, the 5,000 rupees per the household. So that is just to buy, it is not enough. And actually this is really affected for the healthcare system of Sri Lanka, because so there has been actually it has been affected for the maternal child healthcare system due to this the focusing on the combating the COVID-19 situation. So that is actually we have to think about. Now actually we are discussing on that, and there are some suggestions given by the expertise to integrate nutrition into this COVID-19 response and recovery, as well as to increase the capacity of the healthcare system, and again they prioritize the needs of the most vulnerable group. So this is actually the blanket approach we use. So actually it is important to prioritize these needs of the most vulnerable groups, as well as to sustain the functional local food system. That is important.
Thank you very much. And I thank all the speakers for the brilliant exposition we had in all the three lectures.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bala.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Over to Dr. Bala for the formal vote of thanks and the questions posted in the chat box by the participants.
Ma'am, there are many questions in the chat box, so I can share few questions to you. These are the questions from the participants. Are there any measures taken by the government in helping the public through telehealth or teledietetics at this pandemic situation?
So if I talk about the country situations, actually, so this the government has taken, so then actually through this the televisions or advertising this healthy diet, I don't think so this we have done it successfully, but that's I'm not happy that up to that level, but we have to improve it. So this the advertisements or educating the general public, so with effective ways and means. So because of these the lockdown of the country, so this actually we were not prepared for this sudden situation. So therefore, so we have to think about that.
Okay, ma'am. One more question. Has the storm of global malnutrition already set in or going to set in a big way that we must be prepared for it?
Yes, that's the thing. So we have to prepare. It's like a storm.
Okay. This is to Dr. Vimal Karani.
Yeah.
How to increase the B12 in vegetarian diet through food by daily routine?
Well, that is actually the whole point of my study. So when you're not getting vitamin B12 through your diet, and the main source happens to be all the meat-related products, and if you are vegetarian, then the only way by which you could boost your B12 levels would be the B12 supplementation. But then again, make sure that you don't cross the dosage of the B12, because high levels can also have and lead to side effects.
Yes, Dr. Vimal. So
yeah.
What about that the yeast extracts, which has got high vitamin B12?
Well, there are some vegetarian products, but one of the, as you can see in the previous studies, they have clearly shown that the vegetarian diets is one of the main reasons why nearly 50% of the population is B12 deficient. So if you compare the vegetarian and the non-vegetarian foods, the source of B12 is very much higher in the non-vegetarian foods.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
During, fermentation of foods, either by using yeast or any other sources using microbial fermented foods, what will be the bioavailability in raw foods or fermented raw foods or fermented cooked foods? Do you have any data or any publication to share with?
Sorry, all my studies are more genetic related studies, like which are free of confounding and all the reverse causation thing. So I haven't done any study on that.
You can relate to some publications, you can send it to us where there is bioavailability, because you spoke about the South Indian population and vegetarianism.
See, again, like comparing the data between like the UK population and the Indian population, for example, or South Asian population, most of the South Asians are vegetarians. And if you look at the UK population, the consumption of meat is very high. And that is one of the reasons why the prevalence of B12 deficiency is very less compared to the Indian population or South Indian population, where most of the people are vegetarians.
Thank you.
So one more question. Why sometimes we feel to eat voraciously when compared to a normal eating?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Why?
Why sometimes we feel to eat voraciously compared to normal eating?
Maybe you're hungry. I don't know.
No, is it due to any deficiency?
Is that question
due to any deficiency?
No, is it a question relating to the COVID-19 situation under lockdown or in general?
Yes, it is during this situation.
Okay, so if that is something like happening during lockdown, like that could be because of depression or various other mental health related issues. Or see, the deficiency, B12 deficiency is not only related to diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease, that has also been related to the cognition decline as well. Not just the B12 deficiency, with any vitamin, even for vitamin D deficiency, which has been linked with decline in the cognition levels as well. So sometimes in order to overcome the depression and overcome the emotions and the feelings, we do tend to eat a lot at some times. So that is quite normal. But in general, if you feel that like you are having some kind of a behavioral pattern or an eating disorder pattern, so that could be more of a genetic susceptibility. So that's altogether a completely different view.
Okay, sir. So one more question. Can you please say that vitamin B12 and its role about phosphatidylcholine or lecithin and choline in connection with dyslipidemia, CVD, cardiovascular disease?
Yeah, so there are different studies which have looked at the low vitamin D status and cardiovascular disease, and also not just the B12 supplementation, even the folic acid supplementation. So we are carrying out some studies like looking at the pregnant mothers in relation to the development of cardiovascular diseases in children who are born to the mothers of B12 deficiency, and how these children develop into adults with cardiovascular disease. So early stages of the pregnancy is a time when the B12 deficiency should not happen. And that's exactly the reason why, especially in the first trimester, the pregnant mothers should be given B12 supplementation. And also before getting conceived, especially in the first few months, they have to take the folic acid supplementation, because after you cross a B12, the first trimester, during the second and the third trimester, even if you take B12 supplementation, that is not going to have any impact, because it is only in the first trimester that is going to determine the health of your child. So this is something, a study that is being carried out, where we are trying to understand whether the first trimester B12 supplementation is having any impact on the gestational diabetes, and also whether that is having an impact on the outcome, that is the newborn anthropometric measurements, or whether the child is going to develop cardiovascular disease. So all the imprinting starts in the early stages of the pregnancy.
So one more interesting question.
Yeah.
It is always very ambitious to understand that genetic susceptibility hinders nutrient utilization. But how can we overcome genetic errors through when genes are deciding the authority on nutritional utilization in our body?
No, genes are definitely not deciding. As I said, the main point about this gene-diet interaction is that even if you have the genetic risk, you can overcome this genetic risk by consuming a healthy diet. But there are situations where the genetic factors might play an important role as well. So if you see that the genetic susceptibility is more than what you're consuming as part of your healthy meal, then that is the point I'm suggesting everyone to take B12 supplementation under the guidance of a physician. I'm repeating it again and again. You have to take B12 supplementation only under the guidance of a physician.
Sir, are there any vegetarian foods to improve the vitamin B12?
Sorry?
Vegetarian foods.
Yeah.
To improve the vitamin B12?
Sorry, what is it?
Vitamin B12, rich vegetarian foods.
Which vegetarian? Well, you can take the dairy products, cheese. Okay. They're quite rich in B12.
Sir, can I ask this way? If we want to advise pregnant mothers, you talked about the issue about the newborn and this, even if the mothers, pregnant mothers or vegetarians, can we educate them to have an egg a day so that they can improve the vitamin B12 status? Egg, consumption of egg.
Egg, yes, egg can be done, but the main thing is, like, if they have any utilization problem in the body, then even if they consume a healthy diet, that is not going to be quite helpful. So, for example, folic acid supplementation has become a must, but B12 supplementation has not become a must. And that B12 supplementation is very much crucial, especially in the early stages of pregnancy. So by the time they detect B12 deficiency, it's already second trimester or third trimester. And by that time, the child has already started to grow. And if the child hasn't got that sufficient B12 nourishment, and that is going to have an impact on the newborn outcome.
Maybe it should go as a government policy.
Exactly. That is the whole point of us doing this study. Yes.
Folic acid and iron like that together.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, is there any association between vitamin B12 deficiency and blood thickening?
Vitamin B12 deficiency and?
Blood thickening.
Yeah, well, B12, vitamin D, all these micronutrients have been linked with several outcomes. I've just focused on the cardiometabolic diseases. So B12 deficiency has been linked with anemia and various other factors. So this is a new area of research, which is the link of B12 with cardiometabolic diseases as well, because each and every little association of the B12 deficiency with different outcomes, they all build up together, they accumulate. The cumulative effect is what you see as a cardiometabolic disease.
This question is to Dr. Sumarmi.
Yeah.
What is the best strategy for food security in the COVID-19 pandemic? How should people in the community do for this strategy?
Okay. Yeah. But before I answer this question, I will answer from the question from Dr. Kalpana. Yeah, I found it in the chat box. What are the immediate measures taken to improve the nutritional security? Right, Dr. Kalpana? Yeah. Yeah, I think this is the important point to emphasize here, because governments should not to improve the food security itself, but also improve the nutritional security. Yeah. In our country, the government provide some program for the nutritional security, yeah, including food supplementary feeding enriched with multi micronutrient as a cookies for under 5 children. And then for the pregnant mother, there are some programs like the universal distribution of iron folic acid. Yeah, for pregnant mother. This tablet is also distributed for adolescent girls through the school program and other traditional school in many places in Indonesia. There are traditional school related to the religion. It's called pondok pesantren in Muslim related education. So this iron folic acid is also distributed among the students in school, junior high school and senior high school. Preventing the anemia. In addition, now we are at Langka University, in collaboration with Vitamin Angels from United States, from California, of the United States of America, we have the collaboration to develop so-called the integrated prepared services for bride to be. So before the woman married, we give them the intervention using the multi micronutrient supplementation with the donation from Vitamin Angel. So in this scheme, multi micronutrient supplementation for the bride to be and also distributed to pregnant mother in the scheme of program for rejection too, besides to rejection of low birth weight and also to reduce the maternal mortality rate. And this program is also to prevent the stunting of the children. That's the nutritional security of in Indonesia. And maybe the other program, I only mentioned some program. So that is my answer for Dr. Kalpana.
Yeah, and that was nice. I was so much interested about the cookies that they are giving for the children, the micronutrient.
Yes.
And protein-rich cookies. Thank you, Dr. Sumarmi. I think our registrar.
Yeah, yeah. And then the next question from speak by Dr. Bala about what the next strategies to improve the food security in the household level. Okay. Currently, we in collaboration with the municipal of Surabaya, the major municipal of Surabaya, they plan will use make the utilization of idle land in municipal area, in the peri-urban area, they use to develop the urban farming. The urban farming will be the target of the urban farming will be managed by the people vulnerable from the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, so this in this the it's planning from the local government to strengthen the people in vulnerable group to involve in this urban farming program. Okay. This maybe become the strategy for our local government here.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I think with this last question, we can wind up the questionnaire session. If we see in this pandemic situation, everyone are in anxiety or in the psychological stress. They are too much worried. Is there any scaling to rate it? Any scaling or scoring to score this stress?
Kumari, you have to unmute your microphone.
Okay, so the actual, so the psychological stress, so that is one of. So there are standards way of assessing the psychological stress. So according to psychology, so the actually I don't think. I think there are studies going. So there is a scale for that. Actually, I haven't used, but
Kumari, your voice is breaking.
For that, so there are scales to assess the psychological stress. Can you hear me?
No, your voice
Maybe
is
because some.
Now it is audible. Now it is audible.
The voice are breaking, so you better write in the chat.
Kumari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Sumarmi, you have to unmute your audio.
Yeah.
We have
Kumari,
to.
keep answering the question.
Shall I answer?
Yeah, go on now.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what I want to say is that so psychological.
Kumari, we couldn't hear you. We are not able to hear you. Sorry.
There are the standard way of.
I think she can go.
There are standard subjective questions to.
Okay. Let me briefly answer that question.
So
there are standard ways of assessing your psychological stress during your lockdown, and where people have been using in different studies. So if anyone is interested in knowing about it, just drop me an email. I can send you a link. And also there is also an informal way of assessing your stress. It's a very interesting game. I can send it by email. So please do email me if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pima.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Dr. Balasashireka, moderator, co-moderator, will propose the formal vote of thanks, and she'll also give some announcements.
Thank you, ma'am. There are participants have sent their appreciation in the chat box. Still, it is my duty to propose the formal vote of thanks. Good afternoon to one and all. It's my privilege to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of the organizers and on my own behalf. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. At the outset, I would like to thank God Almighty for making this international webinar on COVID-19 and food and nutrition security scenario in South and Southeast Asia happen today successfully. I place on record my thanks to our Managing Trustee, Dr. TSK Meenakshi Sundaram Anna Avargal, and Chancellor Padma Shri Dr. P.R. Krishnakumar G. Avargal for their support and blessings. I thank Dr. Premavati Vijayan Madam, Vice Chancellor, for permitting us to conduct this webinar. I thank Dr. S. Kausalya, Registrar Madam, for inaugurating this webinar. Ma'am, you always help and motivate us in carrying out such important events. Thank you, ma'am. My thanks are due to Dr. G.P. Jayanti, Director, Research and Consultancy, for helping us in each and every step in the conduct of this webinar. I thank Dr. Vasugi, Dean, School of Home Science, for your valuable support. I thank Dr. Tirumani Devi, Professor and Head, Department of Food Science and Nutrition, for greeting the gathering. Ma'am, we thank you for your continuous support rendered in making this webinar happen today. Thank you, ma'am. I thank Dr. Kumari Ratnayake Madam, Professor Dr. Sri Sumarmi, and Dr. Vimal Karani, the speakers of today's international webinar, for the well-packed informations. You took the entire session so lively and was comprehensive, covering the importance and impacts of food and nutrition security in this pandemic period. A big thank you to all. A special note of thanks to Dr. Vimal Karani for being so active and instrumental in co-organizing this webinar. Actually, this is a collaborative activity as a part of MOU between Avinashlingam Institute for Home Science and Higher Education for Women and University of Reading, United Kingdom. Thank you, sir, for the extended hands, particularly the technical support rendered by you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I thank all the staff members of the Department of Food Science and Nutrition for their support and encouragement. I thank Dr. Jaya Gauri and Subhashini of Computer Center and Computer Science Department for their technical guidance. At last, I thank Dr. Kalpana Ma'am, Associate Professor and Moderator of this webinar. Ma'am, without your support, guidance and motivation in each and every step from planning, organizing and executing, this webinar would not have been happened live today. Thank you, ma'am. Finally, I thank all the
participants. I thank the co-moderator also.
Thank you, ma'am.
Special thanks to Dr. Bala.
Thank you.
Yes.
Finally, I thank all the participants representing from different parts of the globe for their presence from the start till the end of this webinar. And thanks are due to the family members of the organizers and the participants too, because we are all at home and doing this webinar session. Hope everyone would have benefited from this academic meet. Thanks again for making this international webinar a success. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Dear participants,
Thank you.
An announcement for you. We'll be sharing the feedback link in the chat box. You can fill and submit the form for processing the e-certificate. It will be open till 2:30 p.m. today. Thank you, participants.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bala, Dr. Bala,
Yes,
I think, ma'am, you unmute. Registrar ma'am wants to talk or tell something.
Could you please unmute?
Please unmute, ma'am.
No, you have to unmute your microphone, please.
Sir, now?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
we
hear
are
you.
all, it's audible, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful meet. Stay safe, be healthy, and thank you, Dr. Vimal Karni, once again for the MOU initiative
Thank you.
and for the first international webinar. Thank you, HOD and Dr. Kalpana and Dr. Bala for the wonderful organization. Thank you very much for the entire team.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have like
Thank you.
more than
Thank you,
500.
madam.
We have more than
Yes.
500 people on YouTube at the
Yes.
moment.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you, participants.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
In the chat box.
Dr. Bala, Dr. Kampana, Dr. Vimal.
Yeah. Dr. Kumari is there.
Yes,
Dr.
Let me
Kumari,
see.
Dr. Sumarmi.
I would
I-
like
I
to,
think
greeting Dr. Bodini. Dr. Bodini here. Are you still with us? Yeah, I met Dr. Bodini in Colombo 3 years ago. Yeah, I privately chat with Dr. Bodini.
Dr. Sumami Bodhini here. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Dr. Bodini.
Thank you. Dr. Kalpana, I remember meeting you both. We all met in Colombo. Yeah.
Yeah, hi
And
to you.
thank you for taking special steps to help me register. Thanks, Vimal.
The thanks go to women.
Yeah, I know.
For all the technical and all.
Thank you for participants from Indonesia.
Bodhini?
Yeah. Yes,
Can we see
Vimal.
you? Can I see you? I can't see your video.
I am in an unofficial attire, so.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you for participants from Indonesia. There are Dr. Laura, Pak Muhammad, Sultan, and there's Vice Dean of Faculty of Public Health from Jember University, Dr. Farida Wahyuningtyas. Thank you for your participation here. And also Bapak Alamuddin from Sumatra, South Sumatra. He also joined in this moment. Thank you very much for your participation. Okay. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. And let me leave this. Any session again? Okay.
That's Bala.